Thanks for watching this clip from my new podcast, In Search of Soil. For more great clips and full episodes, check out the links in the description below. Why is that you see that in a lot of municipal yards? Why are you seeing the coarser, chunkier materials in there?
It's because of what their inputs are, and then also what they're doing in terms of the composting itself. So even though they have standards that they have to adhere to in terms of pathogen reduction, I don't feel like in municipal composting that we're getting the kind of breakdown of the material that we really need. And the other thing for me, which gets into a whole other world, are levels of toxicity, because there's not testing for that. And there's not testing for GMOs, and there's not testing for a lot of stuff that I think is important. So when you can do a compost at home, and you can control your inputs, and you can, and even if you do a thermophilic or you do a static pile, if you're doing static, you can let that go for 8 months, 10 months, a year. And at the bottom of your compost bin or your compost pile, have something that's actually amazing that does resemble soil. Whereas I just think that when you have on mass scale a turnover of material that you have to turn over and turn over and turn over, and there's, that you're under the gun all the time to get this stuff done and create new room and new space and get this stuff out. And so I've seen some really bad compost unfortunately, at school, school gardens and community gardens and stuff, where I've gone like, honestly, guys, that's not something that I would personally use. I would prefer you guys compost yourself, and then learn to vermicompost, do some other composting. And if you have to augment that compost, get a decent compost to inoculate your compost with.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the green waste that ends up at the yard by us where they make that compost. And a lot of those inputs are woodier type materials, tree prunings. And if you think about the process of breaking those down, even if you grind them up fine, you need fungi, which means time. And no amount of turning is really going to speed up the breakdown of the woody materials. And you're right, when you have an inventory management problem where the flow basically keeps coming in because you have a government contract to take all their tips, where do you put it at the end of the day? So is it just sending it back out the door finished? It's almost like that compost you get has to be recomposted when you get it before it becomes effective.
Well, it's what you said too. It also then, when you put it into your yard, let's say you take that compost, then what you're asking the biology in your soil to do is work on breaking that down. And then also when you look at that kind of stuff, so if you're going to do that re-breakdown that you're talking about, which is correct, what is the nutrient density of that material? What kind of breakdown are you going to get when the microbes mineralize, that material? So I'm always looking also for really good, clean, organic matter that, once you do a soil analysis on it, and you can see like, hey, what is my nutrient spectrum, on this? Do I have all the majors? Do I have the minors? Where am I? I think a lot of stuff that doesn't, and then you get stuff that's sprayed too. So you get all kinds of, that whole type of thing too. So it gets very sticky in terms of if you're growing food, or if you've got somebody in your family who has cancer, or, a child, that has any kind of illness. And especially like, excuse me, in today's world where we have a lot of compromised immune systems, you got to be really careful, because I use that example. I think, we talked about it briefly, that I always have neighbors that love to spray Roundup, herbicides, pesticides. And what they do, unfortunately, is when their stuff, kicks the bucket, they clean it up, sweep it up, and it all goes into the green bin. That becomes part of what is in the green waste stream of compost. Not everybody does that. There's a lot of people that are conscious out there that, really grow organically or do their best to grow organically. But there's a lot of people that just take all that stuff and throw it in there. And if you're not composting correctly, you're not giving it enough time. You're not letting, and the tough part is, even with that stuff in there, until it gets into the soil, and you have the ability for the microbes to break stuff down and then flush that into the aquifer, you still have that toxin, that toxicity, that residue. And for me, that's a scary thing.
Thanks for watching this clip from my new podcast, In Search of Soil. For more great clips and full episodes, check out the links in the description below.